Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1064 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. StickerU.com. Create custom stickers, labels, tattoos, and decals for your home and your business. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Doer. The world's most comfortable pants and shorts. Save 15% with the promo code TMDS. Ridley Funeral Home. Pillars of the community since 1921. And Canna Cabana. The lowest prices on cannabis. Guaranteed. Over 100 stores across the country. Learn more at cannacabana.com. Joining me today, finally making her Toronto Mike debut, is Amber Payie.
Yay! Hi, Mike.
So technically, you have been on Toronto Mike before.
I have. And I actually appreciated that I was with a group of people before coming on. It just makes me feel a little more comfortable.
So you got a little taste of it, but you could let Ashby and Van Horn do the heavy lifting.
Oh, please. Yes. No, I would never step on their toes. No. I was very, very happy. And it was a great episode. It's master storytellers. And as you and I were both sort of awe and in watching everything, they were just wonderful.
So you were on, and I should tell the listenership, the FOTMs, this is episode 1050. You were a part of it, but I always wanted you to have your own spotlight, like the Amber Payie episode. But before I even say another word and find out how you're doing and where the heck you are, why isn't it Amber Payie? Like, where's the E?
There's a whole bunch of vowels in there, darling. It probably was at one point Payie, but we just always said pay in the family. Okay. It's I don't know. Apparently there's we thought maybe we were part of that wine Le Perrier, whatever that's in the stores, but I don't think we are. Huh. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's French.
Because I think periodically, it's Payie, and then I never hear the E when it's said. Like, it's always Amber Payie.
Hey.
And then I'm wondering, like, can we lose the IE? But it's not my call to make. Like, it's not my name. Who am I to tell you how to spell your name? Like, if it's Amber Payie.
It's always been Payie. I think it looks different. I think if it's just Pay, it looks unfinished. But, you go through life and you're pay Amber, pay attention. It just stuff that goes along with it. And I try to have a little bit of fun with it. Sometimes I'll put pay it forward or payday if I'm talking about myself. But sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Well, there's a woman
I never really liked it, though, to tell you the truth.
Oh, what didn't you like about it? That people would butcher it?
No, I didn't like my name. I never liked my last name. And I did want to change it. I wanted a moniker. And I was asked if I wanted a moniker. And I basically said, yeah, actually, I do. I just didn't know what to pick. And then my grandmother stepped in and said, no, absolutely not. Most people ask me if Amber is my name.
Amber is your name.
It is my name. It's my name, Amber Payie.
So I'm going to
ask anybody. I see all your FOTMs on my Twitter feed. They all know from Medivale, I'm Amber Payie.
Well, honestly, I'm going to get to that in just in a couple of minutes. But like, I've seen your, yearbook graduation quote. Like, I can basically attest to the fact that you always have been Amber Payie.
That's correct. And I guess I always will, because I didn't take my husband's name either.
Well, let's talk about that briefly here, because you're not here in my home studio where I would like you to be sitting right there, Amber. One day. Where are you in the world right now?
I'm currently in outside of Phoenix in Arizona. Moved here in October. My husband was transferred here back during COVID. He was, I guess, my husband trains pilots.
Oh.
And when COVID hit, he trains pilots from all around the world, and they couldn't get them into Canada because of the restrictions. And then slowly, group by group, they were all slowly getting let go. And he was probably the last group, but there was an opening in Phoenix, and they said, "You want to go to Phoenix?" And we had always talked about retiring in Phoenix, to be honest. And I don't know, I must have somewhere I never mess with the universe, Mike, never mess with the universe. So I guess all my manifestations years ago of perhaps wanting to retire here,
Wow.
I just got here a little bit early.
Okay, now is your husband American or is he Canadian?
He's Canadian. He's from Alberta. And I met him on vacation in Mexico back in 2014 on my birthday.
Okay, well, that's... So firstly, I guess, congratulations. I'm excited that you, not only that you've found Mr. Right, but that you get to kind of get, this is an early retirement because you're what, 35, 36 years old?
20, 25, 26 years old, clearly. Yeah, no, I guess it's kind of like a semi-retirement. I didn't really react to it very well when I got here, because I'm not used to not working. And the last time I did not working was when I was released from Bell, and that's just we'll get into that some other place here.
Yeah.
But I didn't handle not working very well. When I arrived here, and we were so busy trying to find a place to live, because I moved here in October. My husband had been here since May, and I followed him. I got married down here in the summer. I'm almost 1 year married.
Woo.
Next month. I
Awesome.
made it to a year, and all my ex-boyfriends would be like, "Oh, that's shocking. It's just shocking." But yeah, we're a very good match. We're a very good match.
Okay, so I'm very happy for you. You had to leave your Toronto media career. We'll get to all of this because we'll go like chronologically. So let me just tell you, last night I was talking to Peter Gross on the phone because I literally, this is not a joke, I speak with Peter Gross on the telephone. I'm not talking text.
No.
It's a phone
On the
call.
phone.
Yeah, like he phones me every Sunday. So I almost find it like quaint, like it's almost like kind of romantic or something. So
Yeah, it's like you have a scheduled appointment with Peter Gross every week, and you're very lucky.
And when the phone rings, because not a lot of people phone anymore, right? Like, so when the phone rings on a Sunday afternoon, everyone knows that, oh, Peter Gross is doing his weekly call. So I always take Peter's call because he's a sweetheart. And I drop his episode. So it's always about like his Down the Stretch podcast. But he tells me, usually I say who's coming up on the show, and he'll tell me if he worked with them or not. He says he worked with you, and he said he enjoyed working with you, but he wasn't too sure on the details, but he said he remembers you were very cute.
Oh, thanks, Peter. Yes, I've always been cute. I have always been cute. I worked with Peter. I was an intern at 680 News with Peter, and Peter was lovely. And when you're an intern, you can't remember. And I understand now, having so many interns that have come through CHUM, that sometimes you remember some, sometimes you can't, and sometimes you can, but you can't remember how you know them. So I worked at 680 News in 1994. It was my internship from Humber College. And he was in there, and he was lovely. Peter and I used to be the ones tasked with putting money in the parking meters.
Oh.
So Peter and I would run down together and put the money in the parking meters at 8:00, because at the very beginning, when I started working there and I didn't have any money, I was still parking in the parking lots. And it was like $17 a day.
Wow.
And I was pulling in there at 1:30 in the mornings. My shift was 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then at some point, somebody said, "Why are you doing that? It's free parking overnight until 8. Somebody runs down, puts everybody's money in the meter, and then we're good for another hour or so." So that's what Peter and I did that every day.
Okay, so I'm going to bring you back earlier, and then we'll kind of do this again. But just briefly, was Mike Wilner there at the time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, because Wilner credits Peter Gross with getting his start in mainstream media, because Wilner was doing some kind of internship or some kind of work at 680 around this time, maybe a little later. So I just wondered if you guys crossed paths at this time.
I never crossed paths with Mike. However, I remember telling Peter about a very talented guy in my class named Damien Goddard.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember him saying, well, did he finish school? But Damien didn't complete the school year. Extremely talented, very good at sports. Everybody wanted to be Damien doing sports. So I remember contacting Damien and said, send me your tape, your cassette,
right.
And I'll give it to Peter. And Peter heard it. And I think he was on the air in like a week or two. So I think Peter's probably responsible for a lot of people's careers taking off.
Well, it all comes back to Peter Gross, because I just did a 20-week run where I was producing a podcast for Donovan Bailey. By the way, now Donovan's filming this, it's like a reality show, game show thing for, I think, CBC, where he's right now going across the country filming this thing where he coaches Canadians or something. But I'm sure we'll all be inundated with media about this in September or something. But regardless, so we had to wrap up the 20-week arc, and then we'll pick it up again later. But I was producing this for Donovan Bailey because of Jason Portwando. And Jason Portwando I know because he's friends with Peter Gross. And Jason Portwando is friends with the aforementioned Damien Goddard. I hope I'm saying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, again, Damien, talented man. If I remember correctly, he's a religious man, and he did not believe in same-sex marriage. And I believe this is what cost him his, I want to say Sportsnet gig, but it was his vocalization that marriage is a man and a woman and no alternatives.
And I don't remember Damien like that in school. I don't remember. I remember him. I know that he wanted to be married and have children, but I don't remember those views being strongly brought forward or anything. I don't think it was ever discussed or anything.
And
like
typically
that.
Those views, again, not to pile on, I never met the man, but usually it's just, okay, in this church, it's going to be between a man and a woman because these are the rules of this church. But rarely do I see somebody suggest that even a civil marriage is wrong. Usually, even religious people are like, all right, if that dude and that dude are in love and they want to get married at City Hall, it's all good there. Just keep it out of my church. You know what I mean? You see the difference?
Yeah, I've got you. I don't know. I mean, the way I look at things is that it's very hard to change somebody's mind if they are set on something. And I learned that very early. I had a very opinionated father who I argued with on so many different levels about so many things that I thought he was wrong. And I could never, ever, ever change his mind on any of his views. And I kind of see that now. And I see it, especially being down here where I am. And the religious views, it's more the political views. And I just stay out of it because that's the safest place for me to be.
Right. I always wonder, you're still kind of fresh down there, but at some point I wonder if you'll be missing this country. Not that it's a lot better here, but it's got to be a little better here.
It's different. It's definitely different. I have found that the level of kindness is different in a different way. It's hard to explain. I haven't found the people as warm as I thought they were going to be. I find some of them cordial at best. I've met a conspiracy theorist that just, I didn't know what to do. And it was the checkout lady at the Target. Uh-oh. And I don't know what to do here. And, they want to know immediately what side you're on, Democrat or Republican. They want to know immediately. And I can always tell the Republicans immediately too.
Okay, so we're going to bring you back to Mississauga, so we won't dwell on that too much. But did you buy a gun yet? Any guns in the home?
I have not bought a gun. There are a lot of guns here. There's a lot of people that have guns, and even Democrats have guns, I've learned. But I've not bought a gun. I'm hoping to never buy a gun. I don't think I do need a gun.
It's tough to shake that Canadianity out of you, many decades.
Well, yeah, it is. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I hear that my friends that are here, some of them, there's one that has a gun. I don't know about the others. I know one wants to get a gun now because now she's afraid of everybody else that has the guns. And then you have this whole circle of, I'm afraid somebody's coming in my house with a gun, so now I better get a gun to shoot you back.
Amber, this is what I always thought of steroids, okay? Because I often hear people say, hey, just let them take steroids. And I'm referring to to professional athletes, okay? So let's say you say, okay, fine. Baseball players can take steroids, right? Mark McGwire was taking steroids. He hit whatever, how many homers, 70 homers, whatever the heck that was. Now, because he's taking steroids, you got to take steroids to compete because now it's not a fair fight. He's on steroids, you're not. Now you have to take steroids. Now everyone's got to take steroids, and it's very unhealthy to be taking steroids. And this sounds like the whole gun idea. Like everyone's got a gun, so now I need a gun, even though I don't want a gun. Anyway.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And it's still, I don't notice it now because I've been told a few things since I've been down here from the people who have lived down here. I've heard anywhere from my bank manager, who's amazing, by the way, my bank manager, to the guy that installed our water softener. Do not honk your horn at people. You know, when somebody stopped at a light or whatever and you honk your horn just to get them
to let them know it's green. Let's go.
Never, ever down here. And I'm just, what's the problem? You just give them a little tap, a little honk, just let them, hey, it means it's on. Bring it.
Okay, you're scaring me. You're scaring me.
I'm scared. And there's another area around here that somebody said, don't even look at them. Look straight ahead. If you approach a light and it's stopped, just stop a little bit behind, because if you look at them, it's on. And you don't know who's carrying a gun, who's not carrying a gun.
Right.
I don't like to say that I encounter this every day because I do not. I did see a vehicle in the parking lot the other day, and he had it was a big, like, AK-47 or whatever it was. And it said something like, I want to see you try and take it from me or something. So there's a lot of that. They're very strong on their ideals, some people, about having a gun and owning a gun. And it's not something that I'm interested in.
Okay, hang in there, Amber. Home is always waiting for you if things go south, no pun intended. Okay, so I did want to pass on. Come home. Right, you can always come home, Amber. Okay, so Peter Gross, I mentioned the Peter Gross call because Peter Gross did share some interesting information I want to share with FOTMs now, and it's not serious in that he's okay, but our beloved FOTM, John Gallagher, suffered a stroke. And it's the same kind of stroke Peter Gross had a couple of years ago, and I forget the term, TIA or something, but where it's, I guess you'd call it minor. Like, I don't think John even spent the night in hospital. He was in hospital for like 8 hours or something. And he's home now, and he's able to speak. But John Gallagher did suffer a stroke, so I just want to let John know the FOTMs are thinking of him, and I hope this is just a little blip and that he's, gonna outlive us all as planned.
Right. It's scary. I wish John all the best.
You never did you cross paths with him?
I've only crossed paths with John. I guess it was sort of a social setting. It was in a bar. And why are you laughing?
Because that sounds like the social setting of choice for my friend John. Well,
I was
Gallagher.
there too, so I don't know. I was there with a girlfriend, and he was standing at the bar, and it was Alfresco's on John Street, John near Richmond, I think it is.
Okay.
Right near the studios. And I went in there with a friend of mine. I don't know what we were celebrating. And he was standing there at the bar, and he was having a drink. And these three guys just would not leave him alone. Like they were challenging him, and they were, discussing sports and how his opinion sucked and all this kind of stuff. And I remember sitting there looking at him. I'm like, oh dear. And I worked for CHUM at the time. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go over there and see if I can stop this, because to me, how it looked like he was getting heated.
Wow.
So, and I could see John basically saying, guys, I just want to have a drink. So I went over there and I chatted with him, and I think he said thank you. I'm pretty sure he said thank you. But that's one of the only time I've ever met him.
Okay, good for you. You saved him there, I think.
I saved John Gallagher.
See, no gun required. Okay, let's get you back to Mississauga. So I want to shout out FOTM YYZ. See, he's American. No, I know. It is YYZ, but he's told me in the past he once had said YYZ Gord. So
why Gordy?
Why Gordy? That's a great question. But Gord, I'm going to read what he wrote. Hope you ask Amber Payie about growing up in the Meadowvale neighborhood of Mississauga. And by the way, another FOTM, Moose Grumpy, apparently also from this neck of the woods. But I think he went to Meadowvale Secondary School with you.
That's correct. He did. Gordy Goodfellow.
Yeah. Okay. And he. By the way, we talked earlier about Damien Goddard, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is it Goddard?
Goddard.
Okay. Does not approve of a man marrying a man. This is Damien's opinion based on his religion. Why YZ Gord married a man? They're very happy together. So shout out to Tom.
Oh, God, congratulations, Gordy and Tom. I'm so happy to hear that.
But don't tell Damien. Okay, so talk to me about the Meadowvale neighborhood and growing up at with Meadowvale Secondary School.
Okay, sure. Great place to grow up. I was born in first year of my life was in Rexdale. So I guess I'm a Rexdale girl. My mother, when she immigrated from Scotland, they went to Rexdale where my father was. They met, started off my life in Rexdale, moved to Streetsville, and then finally to Meadowvale when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I grew up there. I went to Maplewood Public School. Actually, first I went to Shelter Bay, Maplewood, Edenwood, Meadowvale Secondary. And I don't know how far back I go with Gordy. I'm not sure if it was just at Meadowvale Secondary, but Gordy, when I tell you Gordy was out of my league, I mean, he was out of everybody's league. Gordy I'm quite certain, probably one of the smartest, most brilliant people in the world. And I think he was one of the smartest people in the province when I was in school.
Really?
If I remember correctly, brilliant, which is why I never had one class with him, because he was probably in some elite neck of the woods. But from what I understand, I would just really know him, just kind of say hi. Fabulous guy.
So just so you know, he's actually, we have a pirate stream. It's live.torontomike.com. And he's there now listening live. So he's hearing these kind words about him live. He did write in the chat, Eaterwood. Did I say that right? Edenwood. Yeah, see, I need my glasses here, Amber. Okay.
Did I forget Edenwood?
Edenwood is what he wrote in there.
So it was back in Edenwood. He was there. So I don't think I ever had one class with him, but we all knew Gordy because Gordy was brilliant.
Okay, I could tell he was smart because he listens to Toronto Mic'd.
Don't we all?
Do you ever listen?
I do. You are my, I try to listen because, it's been really cathartic for me to listen to some people that I worked with, and I take you to the gym with me.
Oh.
You're my gym companion.
I'm honored. Well,
and I listen to your music at the beginning, and I kind of get into it. And sometimes, I can tell that the wheel is going around on my phone because it stops for a while. Is it something with my phone? Is it something with Mike? And I'm on the rowing machine, and I'm like, is it coming back? But you always come back. Okay,
as long as I come back. Okay, thank you for listening. I do enjoy doing this, and I'm sorry it took so long to get to you. But I remember, and we're about to find out, why you wanted to get into radio. That's going to be the next section here. But I remember, I did jury duty once. So do you remember this at all? I was doing jury duty. Bob Summers, is that the gentleman's name?
Yes.
He was there in the pool. They have a big pool for jury duty. And he was there. And somehow you and I were tweeting about the fact that Bob and I were in the same jury pool.
Oh, really? I don't remember that.
How?
He was always getting called for jury duty. Other than my mother, I've never known anybody who's been called so many times to jury duty. I think in the years that I knew Bob, and I mean, there's a lot of years there, I think 3 times. Okay. But he was, I always felt bad for him because he was always getting summoned.
So, but that time, the summoning there resulted in, I ended up on a jury for a murder trial, and I was the foreman of that jury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you how it went because I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to tell me.
No, you can tell verdicts. I don't think you're allowed to talk about what happens in the room, but we did find this person guilty. So,
wow. But that must have been tense.
Well, it was all super tense because as the foreman, 4-person maybe? 4-person. I'm sure it should be 4-person. Right. You're sort of the manager of the team. You're sort of there to keep everybody in line and keep things moving and make sure everybody has an open mind, an open heart, that there's no prejudices at play. You're sort of the boss in that room. It's quite the experience. And I think because I went through that, maybe that bought me some time where I haven't been summoned since.
Give him a break. He's done his job.
Right.
But how much were you sequestered at all?
No.
Or
Okay.
anything
So
like that?
the entire trial was only 2 weeks. So there was 10 days where
Wow.
I couldn't work because I was at a university, whatever that courthouse is called. And yeah, then when it was time, you go in. I can't remember what the terminology is anymore, but when you have to, become, it's got to be 12-0, right? It's got to be unanimous. But that
Right.
entire process before I told the judge we had a verdict was only 2 hours. So sometimes you hear about these things and it's like you're in a hotel for weeks or whatever. We were done in 2 hours, so there was no hangups of us 12 people.
Did you have to sway anybody any other way, or were you all
Well,
just?
you don't sway. Like, it's more like here's what I remember. I remember it crystallized very quickly, and then I had a moment where I said a speech. I thought there was cameras in there or something, like 12 Angry Men, but I made a speech about how
Yeah.
this man's life is in the balance here, and we're about to. It's 25, I think, years before you get paroled or something. I said, so we're here 12-0 very early. I said, let's reflect on this for a little while. Like, let's reflect on it and make sure all 12 of us are 100% certain. So I just basically kind of forced this exercise on the other 11 people. I've never talked about this, I realized. But anyway, it was quite the experience. And
I'm here for you.
that's when I was tweeting with you. I think we were messaging about Bob. He never ended up on that jury, but
Yeah, I think he always got out of it somehow, and I think it was probably because he was in the media.
well, he's famous. Like, he could pull the card I couldn't pull back then. I might pull that card today. Do you know who I am? That would be the card I would pull today, but okay.
We used to do that. Do you know who I am? Marilyn Dennis. See what we could do. What we could get.
I bet you Marilyn never has to do jury duty. I bet you.
Oh, Marilyn's a sweetheart.
Okay, we'll get to her. So what made you want to get into radio, Amber?
I was always interested in radio. I was always interested in television. I don't know if you've found this out in your diggings or anything through Gordy or anybody that is an FOTM, but I was a child actor. So I was always, always, always wanting to be on the radio or on camera or performing at something in a play, whatever it was. It was the only thing I was good at. I wasn't good at anything. I was a terrible student. I hated school, but I could do that.
But are we talking like ads? You would be in commercials and stuff?
I used to be on TV shows. So there was a show, and you can Google it, but you probably won't find the era that I'm in. It was called Kids World. It was a news magazine program for children. Kent Frost, Sandra Fujimoto, and Andrea Davis were the first round of people in that group. I was in the next group. So I was with Lisa Abarquez. I was with Keith Singer and Mark Goslin, who a friend of mine actually ended up working with later in life. And he didn't tell anybody he was on this show until I outed him, I guess. But I was always doing some sort of acting. I was barely in school in grade 6, which was fine with me because I hated school. I just hated it, always hated it. And I was pretty successful as a kid. I just enjoyed it and I liked it and I wanted to work. I didn't want to be in school. I wanted to work. So in that realm, I wanted to be doing something that had to do with microphones, lights, cameras, action, all of that kind of stuff. So I was an actor for a while as a kid, and then kind of got out of it. My parents had gone through a split up when I was about 16 years old, and I couldn't get into the city really anymore. Like, my whole family was like blowing apart, and it was just an odd place to be. So I just kind of shelved it a little bit and tried to figure out the rest of my life. But when it came to going to university, I remember, and I was very sick my last year of high school. I was traveling from Bracebridge, where my father lived, into Meadowvale every day for school. And I got really, really sick. So I was off school for, I think it was 3 weeks. And when I came back, I still wasn't quite right. But prior to that, I had failed an accounting exam so poorly. I'm pretty sure it's probably up on a wall somewhere. But I was so ill, I couldn't even focus on it. But at that point, I needed to decide where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I decided, instead of going the media route, because I was a little bit afraid of it, I think I'm a great worker, but I think I have a lot of insecurities, putting myself out, putting myself forward. And I think that was another case where I sort of veered a different direction, and I wanted to go where I knew people were going to be, which was University of Waterloo. And I was a health sciences major. My brother was there. I had friends that were going there, and I stayed in residence, and I was there for 2 years before I realized, oh, this is so not where you need to be. And I left.
And where is it that you needed to be?
Just not there. I didn't like I wasn't just not in a school setting where I was, studying all the time. I wanted to be a little more active in what I was doing. I then took a couple of years off, and I was like, you know what? You need to figure out what you want to do. Now, maybe you have the confidence to try radio broadcasting. And then I applied at Ryerson and Humber, and Centennial, I think, was the other one that was kind of on my list. I don't remember Seneca really being in that vein, but I remember sending my stuff off to Ryerson, and then they told me they didn't receive my information, so they wouldn't let me apply, but they cashed my check.
Oh.
So I'm like, it was a $50 check. You cashed it, but you're telling me I didn't make it in time. So I didn't get the money back. And I went to the interview at Humber. So we all kind of in this big room, and I had Joe Andrews and Jerry Shulman that were there. And I remember after doing a little bit of an audition there, and they said, are you going to be in the diploma program, which was 2 years, or in the certificate program, which is 1 year? I said, I don't know. Which one do you want me to be in? I didn't know which one to pick. I didn't know where I was supposed to go or be or who or what or whatever. And they decided the CERT program, the 1 year program, was where I should be, because I had past experience doing television and voiceovers. And I also was older. I was 23. And at that moment, I remember leaving. There's about 3 things I've been sure of in my life, and that's one of them. And Humber College was one of them. When I left that interview with Jerry Shulman, and I did my, voiceover work, I remember driving away going, I know, and it's very rare I'm confident about something, but I knew that I got it. And I knew I was supposed to go there. And I knew, for whatever reason, that was what was meant to be for me.
Amazing. Okay, so this Humber College is your gateway to our terrestrial airwaves.
Yes, it is. I started at CHUM right from Humber College. I was chosen along with another classmate of mine to stand. It was at the International Auto Show. And, in the dead of winter, there's always a snowstorm. And I was there, and he and I stood there for 12 hours a day for 10 days in a row in the Sky Dome. And we were giving away this cute little Mazda Miata. And that was the start. I stood there. And at first, the interesting story with me at this show was I didn't know who Jungle J. Nelson was. And that week that we were both there, people started coming up to us saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear about Jungle J. And I'm like, what? And they just kept coming one after the other. Sorry to hear about Jungle J. We're so sorry to hear about Jungle. Finally, the two of us were just like, oh, I know. Isn't it terrible? We had no idea what happened. We had no idea what was going on. So the other gentleman that I was with, he actually, went and looked something up. Meanwhile, I called my parents.
Sure.
Who's this Jungle J. Nelson? I have no idea. Everybody's asking me about it. So that was my first lesson in get to know your company and what's going on, because then we could properly answer.
Right. Okay. So for those of us who are confused, and it's funny, this topic actually just came up on Toronto Mic'd with Blair Packham. I think that was like 2.5 weeks ago. But tell us, who was Jungle J, and why were there shout outs to Ridley Funeral Home regarding him?
I don't know about that, but Jungle J was apparently, I never met Jungle J. He was brilliant on the air. He was, I think he was an actor originally in Buffalo, and he had this whole Jungle J sort of skit. And I believe it was Mr. Waters, who began CHUM, his daughter, that said, why don't you get him to come on the air? And he's sort of changed the airwaves. He apparently was a very brilliant, very funny man.
He was a
And I
morning
think-
show. He was a morning show host at CHUM, right?
Yeah. And I think from what I understand, maybe a little bit of a tortured man as well. Inside, which I think a lot of artists are.
He died quite young.
I think he did, and I don't think that, from what I recall, I don't think he was in the place where he wanted to be.
Well, the sad connection to the Blair Packham episode is that Blair was sharing a story about how he was at U of T radio and he was one of the youngest DJs in the country. But there was a guy down the hall a little younger, and it was Jungle J Nelson's son. And his son, who started on the air there, I think he was like 14 or something. But he ended up, which is too young for university, so I don't even know how that works. But he ended up being like a radio guy because he was very good as well. He was a radio guy in Ottawa, who I'm told by Mark Weisblot, who visits me every month, I'm told he also died quite young. So I know, terrible. I know, very terrible news. But you're at the auto show and you're representing. And just to clarify, because when people say CHUM, it's like, well, which CHUM are we talking about? This is 1050 CHUM.
1050 CHUM. Yeah, the original 1050 CHUM. It was I was plucked out of the class to do this before the ending of my school year. It was February, and I did that, and I didn't really hear back because I didn't think that the woman that had hired the two of us actually liked me very much. I just got a bad kind of feeling that she just really wasn't impressed. She was very impressed with him because he was a little bit older than I was. He was probably the oldest person that we had in our class. So he was a little bit older and maybe would represent the company better. But from my understanding, it had come to light that he had been bothering another classmate of mine. And then she was like, no, I don't want him. Now I'll call her. So that was me. And I remember thinking, I don't think I want to take this call or this job. And she kept calling and I wouldn't return the call. And I feel really weird saying this, by the way. I wouldn't return the call. And then finally, I think the message that she left, I lived with my grandparents at the time, was if she ever wants to work in this city, she'll call.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, oh, I better call.
Right.
So I phoned. And I spoke with her, and I went in, and then it started a whole other trajectory for me where I was doing a Corvette Summer, and I was doing Stuff a Bus, just things that were on location. They ended up giving me the nickname On Location Amber. And I got that from Robbie Evans from 1050 CHUM because I was always on location. I was on location Amber, on location Amber, on location Amber. But yeah, it was a different time in that I not only worked for 1050 CHUM, I was also interning at 680 News at the same time, which, I don't think many people do, but I did.
Well, I mean, they're competitor companies, right? This is,
they were
CHUM and Rogers.
CHUM and Rogers, and it was different. And by the way, if we're going to talk about 680 News, I actually have a Jesse and Jean story.
Okay, please. These are FOTMs as well. Let's hear it.
Okay, so this is they would probably never remember this. I, at the time, was horrified that it happened because I was fresh out of school and I'm in a newsroom with Dick Smythe, Marlene Oliver, David Craig, Richard Crabb was in there. I shouted a fabulous gal named Arlene Healy. She was amazing. And one day, and I was already always nervous. 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. was my shift. My sleeping pattern was off. I was young. I was terrified. And I'm in there. And I was, always having to call the cops or write a story or this or that. And the phone rang. So I always had to get the phone. So the intern gets the phone and hello, 680 News, newsroom, trying to sound all professional. And it was, hi, we have a news tip. We have a news tip. I'm like, okay. And I'm my pencil and my pen. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And this is Jesse and Jean calling. We just got a street named after us, and we'd like to know if 680 News is going to send a reporter to cover it. And I went, just a minute, please. And this was the part that was the most humiliating part for me, and I'll never forget it. As I went to hang up the phone, I had a pen in my hand or a pencil like this. Mm-hmm. And remember the old phones look sort of yellowy brown, and there was like a a strand of buttons on one side and then a strand of buttons on the bottom.
Yep.
So I went to hit the hold button with one finger, but the tip of the pencil hit the release button and hung up on them. And then I was like, oh my God.
But hold on, titch of context though. They're not, because you're at 680 when you get this call. And are they at 640?
They are at 640.
Okay,
They're somewhere else.
Was that live on the air? Like, was that broadcast on 640?
I'm pretty sure it was live on the air. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I just know I was mortified. And I turned around. I just sat there for a second and thought, how do I say this? Like, how do I do this? So I remember turning around to Richard Crabb, who was the assignment editor at the time, and I said, so here's what just happened. And I told him, and then he stood up and made this big announcement in the newsroom. Everybody, Jesse and Jean, they are at it again. And they've just called the newsroom. Now, Amber accidentally hung up on them. But if they call back, send them to me. And I'm like, oh my God, I was doing one of,
I think that was the best move. Like, I know it was an accident, but I think that the hang up was the move. Like, this is the competition they're being dinks.
Ugh, yes. Well,
shit disturbers. You hang up on those guys.
Well, I just didn't know what to do, and I didn't mean to do it, and I did it, and I thought, oh my God.
Oh, that's funny.
They've got like this dumb woman here. Anyway, that's my 680 story.
Okay, no, anytime you have a story about anyone like that, just let me know. Okay, because I'm trying to get you in this right place. So you're at 1050. Just remind us, which era of 1050 is this? Is this before the team? Yes.
Before the team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very much before the team.
Right. So are we golden oldies right now?
We are.
Okay.
So the morning show at the time was Bob, Sam, and Robbie, Bob McGee, Samantha Houston, and Robbie Evans. Great. Love them all. And Doug Kirkwood was their producer as well. I don't want to leave Doug out. I like Doug. And it was Bob, Sam, and Robbie. Mark Payne was on the air. Russ McLeod. Greg Lee was over there. There was just, it was oldies. And when I started, it was oldies. One of my first jobs was taking a couple of vintage Corvettes around called Corvette Summer. Actually, I have a picture. Maybe I'll send you the picture of it that I have. A really hot day. I'll never forget that day. But yeah, I started there, and this was 1994. So I was there in 1994, and I went right through the team. And after the team went back to oldies.
Okay, so I have questions about when it went back to oldies. Okay, so there's a few people I want to ask you about. One is Tom Rivers, because I listened back to episode 1050, okay? So it sounds like in this iteration of 1050, the post team, that Tom would do voice tracks for the station. Do I have this right?
Correct.
Okay, so when Tom Rivers was voice tracking his show on 1050 at this time, you had a relationship with him, right? You would converse with him.
Yes, not a physical relationship with him. Let's be clear. He was married to Nancy Krant, who I also worked with.
No, yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't suggesting that, of course, but that would be quite the scoop right here. Okay, no, but you had a friend relationship where you would converse with him. So what can you tell us about your conversations with the late Tom Rivers?
First of all, I'll tell you that Tom Rivers was my idol growing up. So I don't know if it was all of those hours as a kid listening to him, and his humor was very, I guess, sarcastic. And in person, he was sarcastic, big teddy bear of a man, but he was sarcastic, and he knew who he was. He was a very strong, big bear of a man. And I think I was used to his candor. I think I was used to his wit. I think I was used to his tempo. I think I was just used to a lot of things. We had this unbelievable ability to know what the other was thinking, even though he had voice tracked it hours ahead of time. And I think for some reason, he just got me, and I somehow maybe just got him. And I don't know if it was because he was when I listened to the radio, it was Tom Rivers. It's Tom Rivers and Mike Cooper, Tom Rivers and Mike Cooper, CFTR, or CHUM, or, wherever they were at the time, flipping back and forth.
Right.
But it was what I'm so glad I had the opportunity. Number one, he was amazing, and no BS from him. He was just Tom Rivers, and I was honored that I was actually able to keep up with him and be able to have that kind of conversation with him. Like I actually felt important. I felt like important.
Well, Amber, you are important. And I was actually going to bring this up when you mentioned that until this other gentleman, I guess, bothered somebody else in the class, as you so delicately put it, that it sounded like that person was going to get sort of the CHUM gig. And I was just thinking back to that time in radio, and it's not much better now, although it is a little better now. But I mean, radio, forget radio in Toronto, radio anywhere, but in Toronto particularly, a boys' club, right? Like, how does a woman broadcaster? You couldn't set your sights on getting your own, daytime shift, could you?
Sure. I mean, when I was at CHUM, there was already women there. I mean, I admired Marilyn Dennis in that morning show.
Yes, but Marilyn was co-hosting. Like Marilyn was one cog in the wheel.
Ingrid Schumacher was also there. So Ingrid Schumacher had her own show. So I had, and I there was not only strong women on the air that were kind, there was also strong women off the air that were very kind as well. I just happened to be fortunate enough that I worked in a company that I know what you're getting at. I do. I know what you're getting at here. And I do understand it because it is true. It can be daunting, and you just hope that where you go to work, that people like you and they don't treat you like a piece of shit. And they're not angry or mean to you, or, and you're very aware of it. I was warned before going to 680 News by a teacher about a specific person that worked in that company to watch out for them. I appreciated that. I appreciated that warning. Nothing ever unruly ever happened. So I was grateful for that as well. But it is kind of in your mind. And yes, I mean, I know we're talking about Jennifer Valentine here, and I know we're talking about Q107, and I'm not that far away that I'm not on like what's happening in Toronto, but that was excessive and cruel. It's you do think about it a lot. I haven't had those experiences to that extent, but there have been experiences where I've been a little bit okay, and or trying to deal with that kind of thing. But yes, it's not acceptable. I never got it. Roger, Rick, and Marilyn, never, and anybody in that, never. None of the shows, never. It was just I didn't have that awful experience to that extent while I was in this business.
Well, Amber, that's good news.
Yeah, very good news. Because, and I think about all of the women, and I know we're talking about Maureen Holloway and Jennifer Valentine and Andrea Ruse, who I worked with briefly at Easy Rock, and Jackie Delaney, and most of these ladies I don't know, but I do know what it feels like to perhaps not be in that position where people think you are as good as they are, or you are and they don't want you to be. And that's a very different thing.
You've been saying some very nice things about Tom Rivers, who, by the way, I would wake up to Tom Rivers on CFTR when I was going to primary school. I was a big fan. So I'm glad to hear these nice words, because I'm wondering, did you hear the Mike Cooper episode of Toronto Mike?
I have not heard your Mike Cooper episode yet. I apologize.
Amber, your stock is plummeting here. Just kidding. So that's on your to-do list, but
that is on my to-do list, because I've met him one time, and I met Mike Cooper when he returned before we went to the team. We had this big send-off of all these different jocks that came back, and he was graciously allowed to return to CHUM to do this, and he was another thrill for me to meet, and he signed my CHUM book. So I felt like, when it comes down to everything, I'm just a big geeky fan of a lot of people.
I love it. No, I love it. You're not just a radio veteran, but you are a legit
fan.
A legit fan of the medium, which is awesome. I love it. Okay. So, by the way, did Tom Rivers ever confide in you that he was insulted at the salary he got for the voice tracking on CHUM?
I don't recall that. I do remember the day that he, look at you, you're like, I'm going to get this out of it.
No, I'm just curious.
I remember the day that he left. And I know that the day that he left, his wife, Nancy, who worked with us for many, 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 many years, Nancy Krant, was let go that day.
Oh.
And he came into work to do his voice track. And he got it. It's like, whatever, it was just the way radio was. People are getting let go.
Right.
And I'm not exactly sure how the conversation went, but somewhere along the line, it went sideways between he and the general manager at the time. And I think that some nasty words may have gone, at least from Tom. I'm not sure about the general manager at the time, but at least from him. And then I think he just gave him a parting shot and said, you know what, I don't need this. And off he went, because that was Tom.
I believe the final stop for Tom Rivers in this market is Jack 92.5. I think he ends up there. And then sadly, of course, he dies far too young. Yeah.
And that's another thing that I bring in about Peter Gross. Peter Gross and I sat beside each other at, there was a gathering for Tom, and I believe it was at Seneca College, and I sat with Peter Gross there too. Peter Gross has showed up in my life a few times in different places, and always been a pleasure in this.
I love that man. Amber, I love that man.
I love that man too.
Let's just spend the next hour talking about Peter, because
why doesn't he just come on with me? I'm much better with somebody else to talk to.
If I call him, he will come on. Like, that's the kind of guy Peter is. And we're going to hear, I will just tease that tomorrow night, there's an episode of Toast. We do this monthly. It's Cam Gordon and Stu Stone. We're going to kick out our favorite songs that have a prominent saxophone part. We call this Let's Talk About Sax. And this it's happening tomorrow night. And I just want to tease it by telling the FOTMs. And I think Stu's going to be late. So this will be at live.torontomike.com at 8 p.m. Eastern. So Amber, you can pop over and enjoy the show. But we will hear Peter Gross's voice on this episode of Toast. So I'm just
undeniable, gravelly Peter Gross that we all love.
You should listen to his most recent Toronto Mike appearance, because he auditioned for a role during the episode. It's actually hard to explain because it was all unplanned. We're talking, and then suddenly he gets a text or a phone call from his agent, like, why aren't you doing this Zoom audition? And Peter goes, I thought it was tomorrow. And he goes, Peter, it's right now. And he's looking at me. I'm like doing what I'm doing with you right now, except he's here. And I just went to the Zoom. I connected him. I put the camera on him. He did his audition, but I recorded it the whole time. It's in that episode. And he got the role. And it's quite the it's quite the roller coaster ride.
I love it. It's very hard to kind of do that kind of thing. I kind of, after I left Bell, which I know you'll get to, I did sort of dabble into voiceover work, and then COVID hit, and then the roles or the auditions weren't coming, and so I might pick that back up here. I might.
You should, because I think it's your passion. I can sense it.
I do like it.
Okay.
I do.
Now, one interesting comment came in when I said Amber Payie was coming on Toronto Mike. It was from Alan Drummond, and the comment was, listeners should play a drinking game and take a shot every time she says traffic or chum.
How many times have I said either?
Not
I don't
enough.
think I've said the T word once.
I have to review the tape.
By the way, I call it traffuck now. So just so you know, Alan Drummond has been my friend for 30 years.
Okay.
I met Al. I received a Pete McGarvey Award from Humber College, and I brought my roommate with me to get the award. And the fabulous Stan Lark from Humber College presented me with that award, and love that. He's the one who got me to 680 News, by the way. He was wonderful, 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 Stan Lark. And I met Al that night because my friend and I went out for a drink afterwards, and her boyfriend was friends of his. He is a very, very good friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years almost. He is one of the few people that knew I was getting married. He drove me to and picked me up from the airport when I came down here to get married. And he's a wonderful friend. And if you like kayaking,
I do.
Check him out. You do.
I do.
He does kayaks. He does a whole bunch of different things with kayaks. He takes people on tours. He's incredible.
Okay, because
nice
the family here. The story here is that for my 50th birthday, which hasn't happened yet, my 50th birthday, I want a kayak because I bike every day. I give myself like a 90-minute block to bike every day, but I want to kayak as well in the summer. And so this is like a goal thing, is a kayak on my 50th, so I can get out there and kayak either the Humber River or just in the right by the shore of Lake Ontario. Okay, so I have to talk to Al. Okay, Al.
Yep, he'll set you up.
And
He's a very good friend of mine.
And what was that award you got from Humber College?
It was a humanitarian award.
Really? When was this? Was this 2017?
No, this was 2017 was my Humber College Hall of Fame.
Look at you.
This was right after I got out of school, so it would have been 1994.
Okay, so I'll just skip ahead and say congrats on being inducted into the Humber College Hall of Fame in 2017. Thank
you.
That's amazing.
It was an amazing honor. I remember going in because I taught at Humber for a semester, and I saw all these people on the Hall of Fame wall, and I was saying to Jerry, I'm like, hey, where am I? You know, just teasing, and because I would never assume I would be on anybody's wall. And he just said, well, you know, you're traffic. Take a drink, Al. You're kind of traffic. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just slink back down. But then eventually it did happen. So I'm very appreciative of it. I still have the flowers that they actually sent me flowers because when I received that award, or just before I was receiving that award, my mother was in the final stages of life. And I never went to pick up my award. The wonderful Sheila Walsh accepted it on my behalf.
Wow.
And they sent me flowers, and I still have them. And I'm very thankful.
Oh, I'm sorry about your mom there, but so best of times, worst of times. Somebody wrote that once. But yes. Evelyn Macko's in this Hall of Fame?
Yes. Evelyn Macko, again, another person that I would look up to or listen for growing up. And Evelyn would fill in for Marlene Oliver at 680 News. And I didn't really speak to Evelyn back then because she was very serious into her. She always had headphones on, and I didn't want to bother her. But oh my gosh, I couldn't believe I was in the same room with Dick Smythe and Evelyn Macko, and Peter Gross, of course, was another one. And I remember listening to this very serious person, and I thought, oh my gosh, these people they were going to be in suits and stuff. And I remember for my interview at 680 News, I came in this full red jacket, red skirt, and big high heels, and they sent me out to do work. They actually had me do streeters, which I hated. My heel was getting stuck in the sidewalk. I was that awkward moment. But the guy I thought was in the suit was Mike Apple. And I was like, you're Mike Apple? He said, I'm Mike Apple. But so Mike Apple was there too.
Do you know Mike Apple never misses an episode of Toronto Mic'd?
Hi, Mike.
Yep.
I'm Mike Apple. He'll say, please don't say that, Amber.
And Mike does crossover appearances on breakfast television, right? Mike Apple.
I believe he does still, yes.
So,
he did when I was last there.
So shout out to my neighbor Bojana, who recognized Mike Apple from those appearances on breakfast television and was like, she was swooning. She's 85 years old, by the way. She was swooning. It was quite a moment.
Over Mike Apple?
Yeah.
Aw, he is a sweet, kind, lovely gentleman. Don't get much better.
And I know he's also tight with Peter Gross, so he has good taste.
Oh, is he? Okay, then. Well, yeah, they were there at the same time when I was too. So,
all right,
yeah.
let's talk about somebody who was there then. You already dropped his name, but I'm dying to get a story or two, whatever you can share. But the late, great Dick Smythe.
Right, okay. Dick Smythe terrified me going into 680 News because I had heard, I'd known about the reputation and the throwing of the typewriters and the bang, bang, bang of the pipe and setting the the garbage bins on whatever was in there on fire. And I was aware of all of this stuff because, as I mentioned, I was doing CHUM stuff and 680 stuff. So I was aware of his gregarious personality. So I was afraid. Plus, he was just Dick Smythe. Dick Smythe would come in, and I never had one issue with Dick Smythe. He did ask one time, who wrote the story about the doll? Who is AP? And I thought, oh God, Arlene, is that you? And I'm like, oh, please let it be Arlene, and I was terrified. And I'm like, that's me. I'm just the intern here, and he was like, well done.
Oh.
That was a solid piece. Oh. And then he was fine. I was never afraid of him after that. We had a love of opera together, and we talked opera a lot. When I went to university, one of my courses was an opera course, and we kind of bonded on that. He wouldn't remember who I was. I think I met him years later at CHUM's 50th, and he didn't remember me, obviously. As I said, interns come in and out. So he couldn't have been lovelier to me. I really liked him.
That AP story, okay, that's a trope that you will see in sitcoms, right? It'll be some blustery, angry kind of guy, like Dick Smythe will be, who wrote, like, it looks really angry and passionate, and it'll be like, who's AP? And then, of course, AP, who's you, it would be sheepishly afraid to say it's you because he's going to say, this is the worst piece of garbage I've ever read. What a piece of trash. And you're like, yep. It's me, sir. And then he's like, that's exactly. This is the greatest piece.
It really happened. I'm telling you, it's like I was so scared. I was scared every day I went to 680 News. I was afraid I was going to say something wrong or write something wrong in a newscast. I didn't enjoy calling people and asking them, if there was a murder. I didn't enjoy that. And I knew that when I left 680, I really didn't want to be in a newsroom again. And then the rest of my career I spent in a newsroom.
Right.
So, it's just kind of a learning curve, but I never really kind of got over that, the scary part of it. And I think that takes me back to your other conversation that you had about it being a boys' club, where I'm always afraid to get yelled at. It doesn't matter. I'm always afraid that somebody is going to yell at me. And when you're afraid of it, you're kind of always on guard for it. So that kind of thing is, you want to do a good job. And if somebody is terrifying you and being horrible to you, then you do, I don't know, a fight or flight. And for the most time, sometimes you flight. And you're terrified and you leave. And I don't know. I keep thinking about, ever since Jennifer brought up all of that information and did that video, I think I'm feeling like a lot of women in this business are feeling. At first, it felt heavy, and it felt as if you were reliving all those different things that kind of happened, not for me at all at that extent, but in those moments where somebody kind of made you feel small and you really didn't know what you could do about it or should do about it. You didn't want to lose your job. That person was the star. So that kind of stuff, it does come kind of flooding back. And I think that I wouldn't be mistaken if all women that have kind of been in this business felt that and had all of these feelings rushing back.
And I will just say, it's not just your industry. Like, this is
no,
right, but
it's everywhere. I mean, it is.
Like, there's a simple code by which, and I've been trying, even as a guy who would be, writing on TorontoMike.com or conducting, 1,064 of these conversations for Toronto Mike, the podcast, and just, working with whomever, that if you just treat everybody with respect, like, it's just one word, respect. Everyone it doesn't mean there shouldn't be some corrective, constructive criticism or guidance, but always respect the person you're either writing about or speaking to. And when you hear these allegations, there's a complete lack of respect for another human being. And really, that's what I find abhorrent.
Absolutely, totally abhorrent. And look, media and being in a newsroom is a tough room, and it shouldn't be to the point where it's abusive. It's just not it shouldn't be tolerated. It shouldn't be accepted. I didn't have that experience to that extent, thankfully. I have had a couple of experiences where I didn't know what to do. I had one man that I did work with who screamed at me, and I was brand new. I wasn't even in the building. I was doing on location stuff. So he called the telephone, started screaming at me about how the microphone was on and it was coming into the newsroom and he couldn't work. And I was like, okay, I'm not the one who sets up the microphone. I'll have to find somebody. But he just berated me then. He berated me a second time years later. And I remember thinking after that second time, he wasn't going to do it again. And he did do it again. And I tell you, that's the last time he did it.
Wow.
Because it was one of those moments where I remember saying to myself, if he ever does that or speaks to me like that again, I've had it. I'm not going to put up with it because he thinks I'm weaker than he is. And it was a ridiculous fight that if anybody was around, they'll tell you it was a ridiculous fight. What he was yelling at me for was just absurd. And it was something, I don't even know how to say this just to tell you about it. It was a fight over a recycling bin and the location of a recycling bin that had been in the same location for years before I got there, but all of a sudden seemed to be a hazard to him after I got there. And then he berated me for that. And then I realized at that point, if I'm not going to let my father yell at me like that,
No.
I'm not going to let you yell at me like that.
Well, Amber, you're a human being, and what I'm hearing here, it sounds like this person, who I guess we're not naming this person, right? We're not naming this person.
I'm not naming this person has passed on, and we sorted it all out and became.
Okay, so this unnamed person though obviously has issues and is lashing out at Amber Payie, and you're taking the brunt of this disrespect and hate, and it's unfair, and you're trying to work. You're trying to do your best job so you can, feed yourself and pay your rent. And there's no room. There's absolutely no room for that kind of workplace bullying.
It wasn't nice, but I'd had it by that point, and this was the third time, and I wasn't going to do it again. I was done. And after he was kind of screaming at me, and I let him have it because I'd had enough. And I remember saying to him, "You're screaming at me over something that has been here for the longest amount of time. So I'm imagining that you think that I'm weaker than you are. Wow. And therefore, I'm not going to let you do this to me again. Whatever's going on in your personal life, you've brought it in here and you're unloading it on me.
Yep.
And I don't want it. It's not going to happen. Not this time."
You know what? This is really resonating with me, and I can't go into too many details right now, except that, and it's funny, I've never worked in radio, but I'm having issues with radio people right now that have been triggered by the John Derringer allegations. And I actually have that same feeling of no more, this stops now, this need to take control of the situation, and where I need to stop being bullied by radio people. And I'm speaking to you. You're in the room. I've never been been in the room, and I'm going through this right now.
Well, you mean you have a platform, right?
Well,
and
right.
some people, and I mentioned this when Jennifer came forward with what she said. I think that sometimes the fear is, and I'm not saying it is with whoever you're speaking about, but sometimes the fear is that they're going to be better than you, and they're going to be more popular than you. And I think with Jennifer, she was more popular. I think she had a big following that brought her there. I only listened to that show one time, and that was to see or hear how Jennifer was doing.
Right.
And I remember thinking, that was, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel that she felt comfortable when I heard her. And I thought, I don't want to listen because it didn't sound comfortable to me. Something didn't sound right. And I never listened to it again. And I don't know John Derringer. I don't have I've met him one time. I met him at a show with Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman. I was introduced to him by my incredible program director from 1050 CHUM, Brad Jones, not your Brad Jones, my Brad Jones.
Right.
And he, that was it. But I was never one for wanting to go somewhere where I thought that boys club was that strong. I mean, I got bullied by boys in school, and those bullies listened to Q107. And I figured, number one, I didn't like the music on Q107. I just didn't. I'm a pop princess. I am as poppy as they come. And my sister listened to a lot of rock and Yes and Pink Floyd. And I didn't like that music. And I knew that music was on Q107. So I never, ever thought about going to Q107. And that the realm of where I would hear two guys kind of being
bros.
guyish.
This is bro talk.
Bro, yeah. Like I thought I'm going to suffocate here. I'm either going to stand up and yell at you, or I'm going to cower away. And I don't know which one it would have been in that situation. If I put myself in Jennifer Valentine's shoes, I don't know which Amber would have come out.
Interesting.
And after a while, it would probably be the one that would kind of cower and slink away too, because after I had that argument with that gentleman in where I was about the recycling bin, I burst into tears because I was so rattled. But I think I was more rattled that I stood up for myself. He apologized the next day. He came right up to me and apologized. He got on his knees. He actually came over to me and he got on his knees and he apologized, saying that it was clear the recycling bin meant more to me than it did to him. And I looked at, and I just thought, are you kidding me? And then he looked at me and goes, aren't you going to apologize to me now?
Wow.
Nope, I'm not. Done. And that was it. He never bothered me again.
Well, I'm glad that that stopped. Now, just a little teasement here before I thank some of the sponsors that make this possible. Then I'm going to get back to CHUM with you here. But it's funny, we mentioned the name Maureen Holloway, so I just want to let FOTMs know that Maureen Holloway and Wendy Mesley are my guests on Friday. So where are we at in the world? This is Monday today, and this is Amber Payie and Payday. See what I did there? Tuesday night, I mentioned, is Toast with Cam Gordon, Stu Stone. We're going to talk about sax. I did allude to something going on in my life here with radio people, and I'm going to stop being so cryptic, and it's going to become very clear on Wednesday. So in the Toronto Mic'd feed, I'm dropping some audio on Wednesday, and then we have Maureen Holloway and Wendy Mesley on Friday. You mentioned Brad Jones. I actually,
Yes.
My Brad Jones.
Your Brad Jones.
From Ridley Funeral Home. I want to congratulate him because we have in my hood here, New Toronto, we had the grilled cheese challenge on Saturday. And Ridley Funeral Home sponsors one restaurant's grilled cheese, and they won. So much love to Ridley Funeral Home on winning the grilled cheese challenge on Saturday.
What made their grilled cheese best?
I actually didn't get the lineup to get the damn grilled cheese was so long. I never actually. Brad should have pulled some strings for me, but
what's going on?
I know I did see him there. I saw a bunch of great people there. But yeah, my Brad Jones has a great podcast called Life's Undertaking. So shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. I wish you were here, Amber. I'd give you some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
Oh, I would love that.
They were at the grilled cheese challenge, so I saw them there as well. Love fresh craft beer. You can get them in LCBOs. You can't get them in Arizona, though. So, yeah, when you get back
ship
home.
it to me?
Yes, I guess we could ship it to you. I don't know. I guess that's okay. What I can't ship to you, though, because it's against the law, you're going to have to come up here and enjoy Canna Cabana. So I want to say thank you to Canna Cabana. They won't be undersold on cannabis or cannabis accessories. What is the law about cannabis in Arizona? Is it a no-go, or what's the deal?
No, I think you can. Yeah,
Oh.
There's lots of dispensaries here, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to keep
I just
up.
don't partake in it, so I don't really know.
You don't smoke. You don't smoke weed, Amber.
Never have.
Never have. Well, you can take it other ways. You could you get some CBD for your sleep
Oil?
time, edibles. And
Yeah, I've heard about that. Maybe I should try that, but no, I've never.
I can
I've
see
never
you
really-
popping a gummy before bed. You get a great sleep. It's a good Amber thing to do.
I take vitamin gummies. Does that count?
We combine them. But thank you, Canna Cabana. Doer Pants, you can save 15% if you go to the retail store on Queen Street West, or if you go to doer.ca, DUER.ca. I wear Doer Pants and shorts and shirts, comfy AF. And again, 15% off if you use the promo code TMDS. And last but not least, I want to thank stickeru.com. I wish you were here, Amber. I would give you a Toronto Mic'd sticker from
I would love
stickeru.com.
one.
Oh, I said
would
last
love
but
one.
not least. I lied, Amber. Last but not least is actually Palma Pasta. So I would be giving you a lasagna if you were here.
Oh, I could. Yeah, I picked up a Palma Pasta lasagna for Tina Cortez
Oh.
at 1059 The Region for her birthday last year, because I lived close by to Palma Pasta.
Okay, yes, Mississauga and Oakville is where you find Palma Pasta. Go to palmapasta.com. You mentioned Tina, so we are going to talk about the region, and I actually have a piece of audio, but we'll get to that after I finish my CHUM talk with you.
Okay.
Another name I want to, I'm just going to pepper you and ask you for stories, but what was your relationship like with the late, great Brian Henderson?
Henny. He was another one like Tom Rivers, larger than life, just full of wisdom and stories, and the way that he, I was very blessed to work with people that could tell a story. They could just hold court, and Brian Henderson was one of them. And the emotion, the feeling, the everything that Brian Henderson would put into his commentary or even his show, he was just so real and so raw. I found him so raw, and I adored him. This is an odd connection. His cousin was my drama teacher in high school, and if Gordy's still listening, it was Miss Bruce. Miss Bruce is Brian Henderson's cousin.
Okay.
So I found that out
he is still listening because he wants to accept the Great Lakes beer on your behalf. I just saw a note from him.
Go ahead. Give it to Gordy. Please do.
Oh, trust me. Gordy will be at TMLXX, and that means the 10th Toronto Mike Listener Experience, which will be September 1st from 6 to 9 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery in Southern Etobicoke. And I just want to let people know to mark the date because it's going to be a magic night. Some of the performances by FOTMs and Palma Pasta is going to feed everybody, and Great Lakes is going to make sure everyone's got some fresh craft beer. And it's going to be a wonderful way to celebrate 10 years of Toronto Mike with TMLXX. So, Gordy, I'll take care of you, buddy, because I got to get Amber's beer to somebody, so... I like calling him Gordy. Gordy's more fun to say than YYZ Gord. I'm going to call him Gordy.
It was always Gordy. Gordy Goodfellow.
Gordy. And was he?
I'm sorry, Gordy. I'm hoping I'm allowed to say your last name. I hope so.
Well, he didn't complain in the live chat, so I don't think I have to do any editing after this. But I think it's fair to say he is a good fellow, right?
Absolutely. Definitely, and very smart. I think I've said that a million
times.
I
knew he was smart.
I don't know what Gordy's doing now. What is Gordy doing now?
Okay, so here's what I know. I know him well enough in that I see him at events, and I had Bentway beers with him. That's something we FOTMs do periodically. So I know he retired, and now he's going to unretire. So I think he did a lot of traveling during this retirement, that him and Tom would go everywhere. And I was always surprised that somebody who looks that young...
Who is that young?
Yeah, well, he's like you.
We're young.
35 years old. So what are you doing retired? Like, I'm like, this guy's retired. Like, retirement's not even a thought in my head. I'm just going to have to keep hustling until my final breath here. But
because Gordy Goodfellow was brilliant. That's why he can retire at the age of 51.
You know, when next time I see him, his head's going to be twice the size it was last time I saw it. Okay, so help me understand this.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about 1050 CHUM.
Yes.
But it's the same blob, right? This is the same, like 1050 CHUM and 104.5 CHUM FM. You're all over that station too, right?
Yes. I did a lot of different things at CHUM after I was doing some on-location stuff. It's now called the CP24 CHUM Christmas Wish. Back when I was there, it was the CHUM City Christmas Wish.
Right.
And I coordinated that for 4 years.
Okay.
So I did a lot of, that was a lot of work. But I did that for 4 years. And then I'm trying to think of, now I'm doing my own timeline. I did that for 4 years. I worked part-time for CHUM for about 4 or 5 years before I actually became a traffic reporter there. So I had worked already, and I was already doing on location, on air there as well.
So you were basically, you were doing traffic. I know we're supposed to drink. I got my Great Lakes here. I got to drink every time I say traffic. But you were doing traffic for CP24 and 104.5 CHUM FM.
And 1050 CHUM.
And 1050 CHUM, of course. And this would be like during, I guess, the morning and the afternoon drive times. You'd be helping everybody get to their destination.
Yeah, I was the afternoon drive traffic reporter, traffic drink. And I was I was only supposed to be there for a month. So I had come in because the traffic reporter that was there, the lovely Judy Wilson, had some medical issues and left to take care of them. And I stepped in and I was hired just for a month. It was 1 month. I didn't even have a contract. I was hired on a handshake and I was in there for a month. And then it was, okay, we're going to extend it to another month. Okay, another month. And I had been so used to working contract to contract. Like I just needed to work because I needed to survive.
Right.
So I was working and I wasn't leaving. And then it just kept continuing. And then Judy just never returned. And Judy's okay, by the way. Judy's lovely and she's okay. But she didn't return to that position. So then I just ended up staying there.
Now, in terms of ownership, just so no one gets confused. So obviously at some point, this ownership is transferred from CHUM City there. You mentioned the Waters family. Like it becomes a Bell Media property.
First CTV.
Right. Okay.
Right.
That's why you're here. You're the expert in all this. So how many years in total?
It was like we got changed twice.
Right.
So the CHUM group that we had, and before we were purchased by CTV, we also had the team come in. So the team came in. I want to say, I know that the team was there when 9/11 happened. I know that for sure because I remember speaking to Gene Velitis, and I remember him. You talk about a sports station and it's sports and whatever, but they were shattered in that room. They were shattered. And I remember Gene being so serious and just sports doesn't matter. This matters. This is life and this is death and this is awful. And this is big. And I remember that they were definitely there in 2001.
Yeah, I thought, well, Gene's been on the program and we've definitely talked about his day on the air, September 11th, 2001. And that's the kind of day that changes you.
It certainly did. And it changed. I remember it because I actually was asleep. And I at that point I was working the 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift, I believe. And so I would sleep later in the day and I missed the phone. The phone rang. It kind of woke me up and I just kind of thought I'd get back to it. And if there was a message, and a friend of mine phoned and she had said, oh gosh, this is awful. I'm like, what's wrong? Are you okay? I didn't have the TV on yet. And she said, well, what's happening in New York? I'm like, what's happening in New York? She said, a plane went into the buildings. And I said, what? And I thought it was like a small plane.
Sure. Absolutely.
And turned the TV on. And then I thought, I bet you that. And I said, I got to go. And I called work. They asked me to come in early because what happened was the afternoon traffic started in the morning because everybody, I think, was so fearful that the planes were now coming to Bay Street or the CN Tower that everybody just left. And it took me forever. And I took a cab. They brought me in a cab. And it took me forever to get to CHUM. And coming home, it was like a ghost town. It was surreal. It was just, and I remember not knowing what to do. I remember Paul Cross took over. He was in the newsroom. My news director, I think his mother had passed around that time, so he wasn't available and he wasn't in the newsroom. And I remember Paul Cross just kind of taking over. And I remember Rob Farina, him saying, no traffic today. We're going to go wall to wall with this. And then it changed over the day. So there's a lot of moving parts. And like everybody else, you just you can't believe it. You just can't believe it. So it was a weird time.
Wow.
But that was definitely 2001 when we had the team in there.
And of course, because I've had so many people from the team on this program, and I made a mockumentary about this at some point where I collected all the stories because although they were promised, and I'm thinking of my friends like FOTM Romy and FOTM Mike Richards and FOTM Jim Van Horn and so many of these people were promised, that this would be given a true opportunity to succeed. Sounds like the Waters family pulled the plug on it relatively quickly. I don't think it made 18 months. Am I misremembering that?
I think it was just about 18 months. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I think you're about right. I think we were all surprised. I mean, we all understand that things don't last forever. Jobs don't last forever. Formats don't last forever. You want them to last forever, but sometimes whatever the issue, we don't make the decisions down here.
No.
The decisions are done up there. So I was surprised to hear that they were going to do a sports station. I didn't think it fit. And, you know, I don't know. That was just me. It was my own selfish. I didn't think it.
Well,
fit.
Amber, as a sports fanatic, I can tell you what didn't make sense was to have a sports station with a national focus.
Yeah,
and
that was something that was very difficult, I think, in terms of doing timelines and just timing and stuff. But I think they gave it a shot. I have heard stories about how some members of the team didn't feel welcome at CHUM, and I loved having them there. I loved the different. I liked having somebody around at night because I was working 2 to 10, and now all of a sudden there was people to talk to. I had Jamie Shalley in there, and I had Scott Laughlin in the newsroom. I think Paul Johnson was on the air, and you saw a whole group of people that you got to get to know. The thing that I found interesting, and so anybody is going to correct me, but from where I was sitting, I found the major problem with the team was the management that was brought in. I could never find anybody. They were on a golf course. And this is just my view. I know that maybe somebody will be listening and thinking, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's you know.
Well, this is your opinion, Amber. Opinions can't be wrong.
Okay, so this was my opinion. I found that their management were in way over their head. That's my opinion. I found their management was way over their head. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to do it properly, and I think it just like dominoes came down.
If anyone listening wants to hear more about the Team 1050 experience, or experiment maybe is a better word, find the Mikecumentary on the topic. So if you go to torontomike.com and click notable episodes, then do your Command or Control F and look for the Team 1050. You'll find it relatively quickly, but there's a very interesting Mikecumentary on the Team 1050. Okay, so Amber, how many years in total are you, regardless of who owns it, but how many years in total were you with this enterprise?
Okay, so if I start from the time, if I'm talking about part-time, because I always count my part-time because I was very dedicated to CHUM. So I would always kind of be in the mix at some point. So I would say from 1994 right till 2017.
Wow. Okay, wow. And we didn't really talk too much about them, but we probably should spend a minute here and talk about Roger, Rick, and Marilyn, which then, of course, as has been covered in depth here on Toronto Mike, Rick gets an offer he didn't refuse from Standard Broadcasting, and he leaves to go to 1010/Easy Rock, and that did not work out for Rick, unfortunately, but he's a good man. I quite like him.
I love Haji. Haji is great, and I understand why he left. I think that it was the right move, and we were all sad to see the breakup of Roger, Rick, and Marilyn, and but I think he felt it was the right move for him, and I think at that time I would have as well. I'm sad that it didn't work out for him up the street or around the corner, but.
To St. Clair, right? That was, I guess he went to St. Clair, if I have my job.
So he was doing 1010 and the mix?
No, it was actually Easy Rock. So
Easy Rock was there at that time?
Yeah, it was Easy Rock. They had a 4-person booth. Okay, I'll name the 4 because...
Kim Stockwood.
Correct. Kim was the outlier, because what's Kim doing here? But that's Kim Stockwood. We already talked about Rick Hodge. And speaking of the allegations against John Derringer, Colleen Rushholm is in the booth.
Yes.
With a gentleman whose show I produced today, Humble Howard Glassman.
Oh, great. Yes. It was brand new. I forgot about Colleen being there, but I like Colleen. Yeah. Colleen is amazing, super smart as a whip. But yeah, I think Kim Stockwood had done some. She'd filled in for Marilyn a few times, and I think that maybe that's where they got the idea from to bring in Kim Stockwood.
In my experience, in my opinion, just too busy. You have too many voices there's 4 voices, and Anyways, eventually they got rid of Rick and Kim, and I think Kim was relieved when they said goodbye to her. Like, I think she was very happy with that news. But it was just Howard and Colleen for a while until it became just Stu Jeffries.
Yes. And I know he does that. I really was never, Stu Jeffries was never in my realm of anything. I understand he's a great guy. I see what he posts and I like him. I think he's, he's funny, and I think he's from the 80s,
He's from Good Rockin' Tonight.
Good Rockin' Tonight. And I never watched Good Rockin' Tonight. I was more of the Toronto Rocks girl.
Right, John Major.
John Major. So
Wow.
John Major.
Speaking of CHUM alumnus and people who have left us far too soon.
Yeah, I met him one time, but well after. I think I heard you say you worked at the CNE.
Yeah, 3 years, yes.
What did you do there?
Managed a game booth called Pop-A-Ball for a company called Astro Zodiac Enterprises.
I do know Astro Zodiac Enterprises. I worked at the CNE for years.
Okay, so it's Ardo's place. Ardo Gadaro.
Ardo's place, yes. So that he was part of concessions. I worked in the offices. And I used to supervise an area on the grounds. It was the CNE Medical Center, the Lost Children, the Baby Rest, and I took over the Scouts as well. So
is that near the Dufferin Gates? That section, that stuff, or
it used to be. The Scouts used to be up by the Dufferin Gate. They since moved into the BLC, Bear Living Center, and the medical center and all of that other stuff used to be right under the Gardner, behind the food building.
Okay.
So I worked there for years. I was the very first CNE mascot.
You're bearing the lead, Amber. I would have led with this when we started.
Sorry. It was honestly my favorite job ever. I was the very
first.
What
was the mascot for this? What was the mascot?
It was a beaver. They had a big contest for a mascot, and it was a beaver that actually looked like a bear, to be honest.
Wow.
His name was Alex, AL-EX, and I was the first person in it.
Wow.
Yeah. I know.
That's a fun fact. So that's a fun fact. From now on in the history of Toronto Mike, when Amber Payie comes up, I will be dropping that fun fact because that's just how my brain works. I'll just say, did you know?
It changed the CNE, the mascot look. He looks more like a beaver now, I think, but he didn't back then. You'd have thought he was a bear, except I used to have this big tail that hung at the end.
Okay, please. I digress here. I need to know why does it end for you? That's a long run, by the way, from 1994 to what did you say, 2019?
2017.
2017, okay. Go ahead.
Well, it was, I remember when Ingrid was let go, and I called her because when Ingrid was let go, it was also 2017, but it was January of 2017, and it was the day after Bell Let's Talk Day.
Right.
And they think a lot of people were let go. And I had that day called and said, I was struggling. My mom was towards the end of her life. I was not handling things very well. And I had called on that morning the day after Bell Let's Talk Day. I remember it clearly. Bell Let's Talk Day, if I could just talk about Bell Let's Talk Day for a second.
Of course.
Okay. I always found it the hardest day in the newsroom at CP24. I found it really difficult to hear people's struggles. And I found that it really affected me. So I used to have to pull the thing out of the ear and not listen to the stories. For me, it upset me. And on that year, it really upset me. And I had the next day called and said, I need to take some time off. I need to take a leave of absence. And it was to be with my mother. I didn't realize that also that day was the day they let a group of people go, including Ingrid. So when I spoke to Ingrid later, she said, I think it was just my time, I guess. And it was hard because slowly, group by group by group, we were all kind of going. And it kind of started when the team, there was a big layoff before I started at CHUM. And then there wasn't one for a very long time. I remember when Bob, Sam, and Robbie were let go, and everybody was just devastated. It was a devastating blow, and we were sad. I mean, these are people that you talk to, and at CHUM, it's not just you, it's us. And I always felt, and I don't know if some people consider it like a family. I always considered it like family in there.
But
and
if I may interject really quickly here, when it was owned by a family, like literally owned by the Waters family, it could be a family of sorts because it's sort of like, you know, WKRP, right? Like they
it was wonderful. It was, I still love CHUM. I loved the CHUM at 1331 Yonge. I
Right.
loved it.
Right.
And you're right, Mr. and Mrs. Waters were there a lot.
Right.
Jimmy Waters was the president.
Like you can talk to the owner. Like there's not a lot of businesses where you can talk to the owner, but that's one.
And they were nice. And I think their philosophy was always keep your employees happy.
Right.
It's not hard. Keep your employees happy and they will produce for you.
And then when you were owned by a telecommunications conglomerate, a giant one, be it like Bell Media, now, how do I say this delicately? You're more of a number.
Yes, you are. And, you know, you still have some of your same people. When Bob and I moved over there, I think it was still CTV. And there was a lot of movement going on at that time. I remember Flo coming in and just loving that whole urban feel, like it's another different station for us. I loved it. When we moved from 1331 Yonge Street, which was in 2009, is when Bob Summers and I were separated from everybody else. So the misconception is that I actually worked for CP24. I did not work for CP24. I worked for CHUM Radio or CHUM FM. I worked for the radio side.
Okay.
Bob and I were planted in CP24. So we lost all those people. And that for me, I'm the type of person that needs to have people around. I like people who I can talk to, who make me feel comfortable, who I hope I make feel comfortable. I need that sort of support. And it was gone, you know, when we went in to that building. I thought at first we weren't going to be in that building, but then we were. And then I had to meet a whole group of brand new people and have a whole different atmosphere. And it totally changed my job. It completely changed my job from what I was doing on radio to what I was doing on TV. Even back at 1331, we were on television as well. It was different because they had to wait for me. Whereas now I was in CP24 feeling that radio had to wait for TV. And that's not the way it was supposed to work. I was a radio person first. Then it just, you know, then Bell took over. And then I think Flo went out. And, you know, then there was a whole bunch of different changes. And it was, you kind of become a number. You walk in the halls. I remember walking upstairs in the commissary and saying, hi to people, and nothing, just straight. But the people inside CP24 where we worked were lovely. I loved the people at CP24, most of them.
Okay, so you get caught up. Am I right that it's just simply it was time to cut payroll and you were caught up in that exercise? Like, why did they say goodbye to Amber Payie?
People ask me this all the time, and I know that there's a misconception. It's a big misconception, by the way. I did not make a lot of money. I did not make a lot of money.
On me your T4 from the following years. I need to see these T4s.
You need to see the T4s. Let's just say, for example, when I started on that handshake at $36,000 in 2001. And I think maybe cost of living from that point on, if you want to figure it out.
So that's not, it's, you know what? No joke. See this? I'm just showing it to you. Do you see that? I don't know if you can see that.
A little bit, kind of. Yeah.
Peter Gross is calling. Can I take it real quick?
Sure.
Okay, hold on.
Hi, Peter.
Hold on. Peter, what's going on? I'm talking to Amber Payie.
Say hi to Amber for me.
We were actually, we were talking about you, and she has nothing but fond memories of you.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
You're live on the air, so show some enthusiasm, Peter.
That's why we never went out.
Amber, why did you never go out with Peter Gross?
I believe he was married or he was with somebody at the time, and I think I was too. How about that?
You were never single at the same time, Peter.
Isn't she about the same size as me?
I think I'm taller.
She's taller than you.
Everyone's taller than me. It's just, as long as I don't think she's not taller than 5'4".
Amber, how tall are
I'm
you?
5'3".
5'3". So 5'3". So Peter, do you want me to call you later, or is there something you can say that's fit for public consumption, or do you want to just me to call you later?
Well, we had such a great experience when I was on your podcast a couple months ago with regards to that audition.
Yeah.
And I've got another one, another Zoom audition. Do you have an availability at 3:55 on Wednesday to help me out?
Oh my goodness, Peter. This is okay. Let me tell you very, very quickly here. What day? Wednesday?
Wednesday, 3:55.
You know, that's my wedding. That's my wedding anniversary Wednesday. But I am available at that time.
Okay, call me later. Okay, go on.
Okay, so just even send me a text or a note to remind me, and then you can come down here and we can get you another gig.
That would be great.
Get me one too.
Carry on with Amber.
Okay, peace and love to you, Peter, and talk to you later.
And find out if she's single now.
I know she's married to a guy, and they're living in like Arizona, so it's a long way for you.
You're welcome anytime, Peter.
All right, peace and love, Peter Gross.
Bye, Peter.
So there you go. You never know what's going to happen
it.
on Toronto. You never know what's going to happen because he knows. First of all, he struggles with technology, so the fact he was here to do that Zoom to get him the gig, that was like good because he was never going to get that Zoom to work on his own. So he now, whenever he has an audition with Zoom, he wants to do it here. So
well, you know what? Maybe you're a calming factor for him, and he trusts you, and I think that's good. It's
because I know what buttons to press. That's all. It's really all this is. It's like
I'm going to come over to your house too because I don't have any. I don't know the buttons to press either.
I always tell Peter, every baby boomer needs a Gen Xer to help them out here. Okay, so Amber, I'm sorry. Let's get back to you. This is all about you, but really to put a bow on this, I think you were mid-sentence or something, but you got caught up in something that happens to many media people. There's these waves I noticed. I've never worked in media, but I've noticed Bell, it always upset me when it was right beside the Bell Let's Talk. Not that it would be any easier any other time, I suppose, but there'd be a wave where a lot of they'd be reducing payroll, it looked like. These were like budget cuts or something. And it sounds like one of these waves caught Amber Payie.
I got caught in this. I got caught along with Bob Summers, Jeff Howitt, Lance, Lance Brown,
right,
and
Joe Tilley.
Joe Tilley was in that.
Coming up,
sports.
He was just on.
Coming up.
He was just on Hebsy and Sports with Hebsy and I like 2 weeks ago, so I just saw him. But
I have a Hebsy story.
Okay, give me the Hebsy story before we get you out of here. Go.
Hebsy, I was doing PR at the CNE one year. And he had called me and he says, I want to do a whole bunch of stuff at the CNE. I want to do it all. I want to do water skiing. I want to do this. I want to do that one. So I spent like a week getting everybody set and ready to go. And I had everybody lined up. And then he ghosted me.
Oh my God.
I know.
Okay. I'm going to ask him about this. I'm going to be with him Friday morning. I'm going to ask him.
I actually called at the station and they said, oh, he's not in today.
Wow.
Pardon?
Wow.
Yeah, he ghosted me. I was devastated, and I said, okay, well, and all the people that I had show up for that day were also quite upset.
Oh no, this is okay, that's rude, right? I got to talk to my boy about this.
Well, he probably wouldn't remember it. We're talking about 1994. So, and I was doing publicity stuff, PR.
Well, that's the height of Hebsy mania, so he probably
I got caught. I was just like, I got something better going on. It's okay. I'm over it.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that you lose the gig in 2017 with Bell because you'd been there since 94, and that sucks. And you'll tell me, but at some point you do get another opportunity in GTA media because you do end up at the Region. I
ended up at the Region and at the same time CBC. So I
would hear you on like Metro Morning and stuff, right?
Sometimes, but mostly it was the afternoon.
Right. Here and Now with Jill Deacon. She's an FOTM too.
Is she? I didn't get to know Jill very well, and I'll explain why. But after I was, it took a long time for my case to be settled with Bell. So some people just take a month or whatever. Mine was a lot longer than that. I back and forth. So I was off for a long time. I didn't know when I was able to go back. So I think it was May. So I was let go November the 20th, 2017. I was 46. It was right before my 47th birthday. My father was on life support in the hospital, and I had just bought my first home the day before.
Oh my God.
So I had all of this junk on, and of course you walk in and whatever. So from that point, I couldn't work. I wasn't allowed to look for work while you're in the whole lawyer process. And I didn't. I just kind of tried to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. So then when I was finally able to work, somebody came forward and wanted me to do voiceover work for animation. And this is somebody who I also went to high school with. His name was Jason Groh. He happened to be an animator and a director of cartoons.
Go away, unicorn.
Yes, go away, unicorn.
I always do my homework, Amber.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I kind of started to do stuff like that and go on auditions. And then in the meanwhile, I had been contacted by the amazing Tina Cortez, who I credit for saving my soul. She saved my life. And she's been so instrumental in so many other people as well. But she wanted me to fill in for the amazing Rosie Ferguson. And
do you know my connection to Rosie by any chance?
I don't, but I've heard you speak about Rosie.
Hey, my best friend since grade 10, the only human other than myself to be at both my weddings, and the original co-host of this very podcast for the first 30 episodes.
Is Rosie?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that wild?
I never met Rosie. You know what? It's a small world and it's wild. And Rosie.
Well, she left Toronto Mike to go to the region.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry.
No. No, because then I realized I don't need a co-host, and I haven't had one since, so it's all good here.
You like being solo. I like being with people, and
I'm with you right now. I get to change the people I'm with.
Change the people. Well, if you want to make this more permanent, call me. So yes, after that, I kind of did both. So I was kind of doing voice work, and then my friend Jennifer Singh, who does a lot of media coaching and that kind of thing, doing amazing work for women. She contacted me. She said, CBC is desperate. They need somebody who can do traffic now, that they don't have to train now. And I said, okay, do you have a contact? And nobody contacted me. It's kind of around the same time where I heard from Tina, and she said, our afternoon co-host is going to Italy. Do you think you could spare us 2 weeks? But the thing that I found interesting was that when Tina sent me the note through LinkedIn, she actually wrote at the very beginning, I'm not sure if you remember me. And I thought, you got to be kidding me, because years ago I had sent her, I'd asked if I could do a demo to read for CP24, and she said, sure. I never heard back, and I figured, okay, not interested, they don't call back, they're not interested, you move on. But for whatever reason, she decided she remembered me. I filled in for Rosie. I was with Mike Adam, and it was as if I fell in love with radio all over again. He brought out laughter in me again that I had been so lacking just by doing traffic. But I enjoyed working with Mike. I worked with him for about a week and a half. And then I had Craig Robertson, who was also wonderful and kind and gracious. He ended up training me for when I ended up taking over about a year and a half later. But I did that in CBC at the same time. That's where I met Reshmi Nair, who's coming up on your podcast. Yeah, she's booked,
I think, July 4, I think.
And she's my sister for life. I love Reshmi.
Wow.
And she just, CBC is a different place when you go to CBC. It's not like mainstream radio. I always just felt they were smarter than I was. Very,
Well, they want you to think that's their little thing. They want to make
almost
elitist.
And when you walk in and I'm like, hi, because I'm very hi, and Reshmi is very hi. It was silent, and I was like, but there were some lovely people there, and I met the lovely Jill Deacon. I worked with Jill Deacon only for a little while. My first day starting there, unfortunately, was the shooting on the Danforth. So my first day was the day after the shooting on the Danforth, and Jill lives near the Danforth. It was her neighborhood, and I walked into a very understandably upset woman. It just sad. And I think she was grieving a little bit. And unfortunately, after that, she had been diagnosed with cancer again, and then she left, and I never had the opportunity to work with her again. Rashmi Nair came in. I have a friend for life, forever, my sister forever. I absolutely adore her and all her greatness. And that kind of saved my life. And I did the region at the same time. CBC wanted me to stay on about a year later in May of 2019. But they didn't want me to do any of my voice work. So I said, I'm going to move on. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have anywhere to go to. I went on unemployment. I started applying for PR jobs, publicity job, whatever, wasn't getting anywhere. And out of the blue, Tina had called and she said, can we talk? I'm like, okay, sure, make it great. You know, at that point, I had known that Mike and Rosie had left. I had worked with them, I guess, in the summer of that year. Mike and Rosie were gone. I was brought back in at Christmas time along with Sarah Bartok for about 3 days over Christmas for Jim Lang, who I love. And then I was brought in after Rob Daniels. So Rob Daniels was before me, and then I took over. Okay,
I'm going to play a little clip here. This is, well, here, let me play it here. It is a couple of minutes here, but this is your, sounds like this is your final break on the region. Here we go.
The big story on 105.9 The Region.
You know, we're supposed to do the big story with the major news event right now, and I look over at the newsroom.
It's empty.
And our news guy, Glenn Perkins, is nowhere to be found. Glenn!
He's out!
Yeah, our top story at this hour, after an illustrious career in broadcasting.
We're teasing, Glenn. We're teasing.
I'm
here.
We're teasing.
Sorry, I'm here.
I'm doing the news.
Yes.
After an illustrious broadcasting career in the Greater Toronto Area, Amber Payie is going to be hanging up her microphone in 15 minutes. And you know,
counting it down.
I know
You just can't wait.
But you know what? In all seriousness, it is very sad. And
it can be.
You know what? Over to you, Amber.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody. I've had the time of my life here. And thanks to all the staff here at 105.9 The Region. I love you guys. I love you so much. You gave me my life. And you were so generous and kind to come in and see me, phone me, send texts, send emails, whatever. And I am extremely touched. To Deborah, thank you so much. I just got your email. Thank you so much, Deborah, for having me in this wonderful station. You have made such a lovely atmosphere for everybody. And I know we've spoken quite a bit. And I think your biggest hope that this place would not feel corporate, that it would feel like everybody was a family and everybody got along and just to be there to support each other. And that's exactly how I feel here at 105.9 The Region. I just feel loved and supported, respected, and it's a wonderful place to work. It's a wonderful place to learn about the business, or if you've already been there, like Kevin and I have, to come back and just have a great time doing something that you absolutely love to do. Tina Cortez, I am not letting you off the hook. I absolutely adore you. You have been my absolute rock throughout this whole process. It's so hard, isn't it? It was hard. You gave me my life back. You gave me my joy back, and you have allowed me to just be in this company and have the best time. You just let me sing, you let me dance, you let me just have a lot of fun, and that's what's important here at this company. I couldn't have asked for a better boss, and what a great way to end my career here in Canada at this wonderful station. Oh God, she's here behind me. I don't remember. You said hi and bye.
And I said no tears.
No, I'm not crying though.
Okay.
Really?
No. She told me, make sure she cries. It's good ratings.
They were just pooling up, but they didn't fall. But thank you, Tina. I really appreciate it. And she's here.
No thanks required.
You have to talk into the mic.
I know I have to talk into the mic, but I don't know if I should take off my mask.
The mask.
Ooh, for goodness sake.
Okay, Kevin, get out of the way so Tina can come in and say her piece.
And I just wanted to say, you saved us as well. You brought in this energy and this feeling of just fitting in immediately. And as you said, we try to create an atmosphere here, and it is true, it's genuine, that we want people to feel comfortable, to be great at what they do, but also to be really comfortable.
Very comfortable.
And you did that right out of the gate.
I love it here, and I love you.
We love you too.
I love you, and I love it here, and I don't want to leave, but I have to go because I have people to see and places to be, and we're getting the wrap up.
Guys, I just want to remind you I'm a diabetic and all this sugar here. But Amber, you know what? You're not gone yet. We still have just a few more words of saying goodbye. That's still to come. Okay. 105.9 The Region, 5:48, 12 minutes before 6 o'clock.
There you go, Amber.
Brings me my tears back, and also I speak really quickly, don't I? Yeah, the region was pretty special. Look, I'm crying all over again. It really truly did save my soul when I finally landed somewhere that just allowed me to be myself, and I was okay with being myself. Tina Cortez is a fantastic mastermind behind bringing in people and enjoying radio for what it should be, and let's play and let's have fun, but let's be let's be serious at times, and let's give information. It's a great station. I wish more people in York Region listened to it. I love Jim Lang. Jim Lang in the morning, I call him my York Region hero. He was just, I've said this a couple of times. Whenever you start somewhere new, I'm always afraid that I'm not going to be liked, or somebody's not going to, whatever this is. And I couldn't have been more welcomed. Jim Lang was just a rock for me. And they were all rock. They got me through COVID. I was lucky that I could go in somewhere every day and be with people that I really liked to be with.
I want to thank FOTM Lucas Ionetta for
Lucas.
He pulled that clip and made sure.
Did
that,
he?
Yeah, he did that.
Is he
work.
there now?
I haven't checked, but he's going to definitely be listening to the podcast for sure. So Amber, how was this? I know I can hear in your voice you miss it a little bit, and I just want you to know that CHUM FM needs a new DJ because Ruby Carr is going on maternity leave, or I suppose we're supposed to call that parental leave now, and you could apply and get that CHUM FM DJ gig if you wanted. No. And how did this go? I know couple of quick hits. One is, was Bell Media fair to you in that at the end of the day when it came to severance?
Finally.
Okay, so finally it took some efforts, but okay, good. That's good. And we never really did talk too much, but we talked about Rick leaving Roger and Marilyn, and then Darren B. Lamb comes in, and then he goes to CHFI. But Roger Ashby and Marilyn Dennis, what was it like? Succinctly, what was it like working with those legends on CHUM FM?
Amazing. I couldn't be more blessed. And Larry McGinnis, Skagman, and Tom Jokic in that studio as well. That whole group, awesome.
Tom Jokic also an FOTM, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yes, he is. I heard him too.
And my last question before I give you the full goodbye, will there be another CHUM Chick gathering this Christmas now that COVID is subsiding somewhat? Will there be a CHUM Chick gathering?
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping the girls get together. Sue Mills, May Potts, Sheila Walsh, Kim Geddes. I hope they all get together. Maybe I can join again. I did last year like this, Zoom. So, and May's daughter Lauren is in there. And we had two CHUM guys there last time. Mike Wiseman, Wise Ass to call him, and Dan Blakely, who was awesome.
Amazing. Amber, was this good for you? Did you enjoy yourself?
Loved it. I loved it. Thank you so much, Mike. I wish I'd come on earlier, but now I'm all yours.
Loved it. Just wish you nothing but the absolute best in Arizona there with your hubby, and enjoy it because you deserve it. You worked very hard, and it wasn't always easy, but just enjoy.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, a real pleasure. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our 1064th show. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Toronto Mike. Amber, what's your Twitter handle again?
At Amber Payie. Look, there's my tattooed it on my hamstring.
Okay, and put an IE at the end of that, Amber Payie. There's an IE at the end of that.
Yes, at Amber Payie. It used to be Amber Traffic, but I don't do that anymore.
No, now you have to take another drink. Our friends at Great Lakes Brewery are at Great Lakes Beer. Palma Pasta is at Palma Pasta. Sticker U is at Sticker U. Doer are at Doer Performance. Ridley Funeral Home are at Ridley FH. And Canna Cabana, they're at Canna Cabana _. See you all tomorrow night when Stu Stone and Cam Gordon drop by for another edition of Toast